Let me begin by thanking my good friend Dr. Miguel Cardenas, the International Training Center's distinguished executive director, who continues to be a strong advocate for organizational excellence and continuous improvement around the world. In this module, I'm going to talk about the new generation leadership that is evolving in our globalized environment. In particular, I will focus on three important tools for business excellence, which new leaders must master in education, business, government, and civil society today. Each generation is different. They bring new ideas, new processes and methods, and new values to our institutions. And as their numbers increase and the baby boomers yield grudgingly to Generation Y and the Millennium generation, you will see a demand for higher levels of productivity and achievement, as well as greater socio-economic justice and environmental protections. And of course, this approach to life and doing business will have a significant impact on all of us. Let me note that what I'm going to share with you today is also very relevant for government, healthcare, education, and nonprofit organizations, because according to my definition of a business, all of these entities are in fact businesses. I say this because I don't want you to think that this presentation is not relevant to you simply because you work in a government agency or a hospital or an educational institution. On the contrary, all of these public sector entities are businesses, according to my definition. And while our missions will vary depending on the type of businesses we work for and operate, every organization is a business. Now, let me give you my definition of a business. I define a business as any entity that has a product or service and delivers that product or service to a customer while charging the customer for that service. Certainly, education would qualify as a business because it provides courses and hopefully a degree to its customers or students, and it charges us tuition. Government provides a broad range of services, and we pay for those services through taxes and sometimes direct user fees, such as a fee to stay at a campground or visit a national park or monument. Healthcare provides services ranging from emergency room treatment to surgical operations to maternity care for newborns. And we pay a premium for health insurance. I think you see my point. We are all in the business of acquiring and maintaining customers regardless of the type of organization we work for. And the reason we need to be concerned about developing and using tools for business excellence is that there are some dynamic trends taking place around the world that are causing customers to change the way they conduct their business, as well as how customers determine which companies and organizations they will do business with. I think the new generation of leaders understands this fact. And frankly, they are more comfortable with the technology necessary to acquire, serve, and retain customers than the baby boomer generation. Nowhere is this more evident than the changes taking place in the auto industry, particularly in the United States. If you look at the changing demographics of car buyers over the past 10 years, you can see a clear shift in the buying preferences of the Y and Millennium generations, which are now occupying more supervisory and managerial positions in business, education, healthcare, government, and the nonprofit sector. So they have money to spend and they are not interested in driving their father's Oldsmobile, as the commercial implies. In fact, they so dislike the Oldsmobile that General Motors is retiring the brand very soon. If you compare two auto divisions within General Motors, let's say Buick and Oldsmobile, I think you will see what the problem is. In two simple words, it boils down to sex appeal. Buick has Tiger Woods as its spokesman. This talented 30-year-old golfer is out there touting Buick's products, while Oldsmobile struggled for the past 8 years to define its image and market. And in the end, Oldsmobile just couldn't create an image that the 25 to 40-year-old car buyers identified with. And regrettably, Ford Motor Company is suffering from many of the same problems as General Motors. Little or no sex appeal, with the possible exception of the Mustang and new Cobra models. Of course, the pickup truck market and SUV markets tell a different story, which I'll discuss in a moment. So, who is winning the hearts and wallets of auto buyers? It appears that the Japanese and Germans are doing a better job than Americans because they are using a relatively new business tool called customer focus to instill innovation and creativity in the design of their products. As a result, Toyota and Nissan, among others, are designing flashy new car models that have broad market appeal. Also, I think Toyota and Nissan's advertisements are more appealing, and once the prospective auto buyer visits their websites, they're hooked. Unfortunately, General Motors and Ford did not figure this out until their competitors had a sizable jump and competitive edge. You see, it was a little-known business excellence tool, innovation and creativity, that led the Japanese automakers to the Internet in the 1990s. The Japanese experimented with technology and created interactive websites based on the same gimmicks used by video game manufacturers to lure the Y generation and the Millennium generation to their websites. In a word, the Japanese have made buying a car cool, while American auto manufacturers are still pushing the old, outdated, and highly unpopular car buying method of visiting a car dealership and haggling with some poorly dressed, chain-smoking salesperson over the price of a car. The new generation of car buyers isn't interested in that approach. If it doesn't connect to technology, the new generation loses interest, and fast. And this is why, according to Auto Data Corporation, Asian automakers captured 31% of the new auto market in 2004, compared to a disappointing 58.7% for the American automakers. The U.S. auto marketplace is shifting. In this country, car buyers are having a love affair with trucks and SUVs despite the high cost of gasoline. The Ford Taurus, which was the car of choice in the 1990s, is now declining in sales. In 2004, the Ford Taurus dropped more than 17%, and the Chevy Cavalier dropped a whopping 24%. The message here is very clear. You cannot afford to give your customers the same old thing year after year. When it comes to autos and trucks, the new generation wants change, a new look, if you will. They also want flash, and they want technology integrated into their car. Interestingly, price is secondary. Now let me ask, what tools is your organization using to drive business excellence? What is your organization doing to improve performance and boost results? There are some very important universal tools that every organization represented here today can and should be using to improve performance and achieve better results. Let me share with you 3 tools for business excellence that I recommend to audiences whenever I speak on the subject of business excellence. And these tools are practical tools you can put to work tomorrow. The first tool is strategic planning. Now, before you say, oh, we already do that, let me define what a strategic plan is and what it is not. When I use the term strategic planning, I'm referring to a comprehensive, systematic approach to planning. In other words, your strategic planning process must embrace 2 vital components. First, it must have a strategy development component. This is the how to developing your strategy. Secondly, it must have a strategy deployment component by which you put your plan into action. Now, I can tell you that it may be simple, but it isn't easy. If it were easy, everybody would be properly using the strategic planning process. But in reality, very few organizations properly develop and deploy their strategic plans. And as a result, organizations and leaders get sidetracked by issues that are not part of their game plan, and they lose their focus. And when leaders lose their focus, they lose money and market share. Let me give you several questions that are important to ask when initiating a strategic planning process. And by the way, these are the same questions I ask my clients when we sit down to begin the strategic planning process each year. Number 1, how does your organization establish its overall strategy and its strategic objectives? Number 2, what are the key processes and steps you take to determine your strategic objectives? Number 3, who are the participants in your strategic planning process? Number 4, how does your strategic planning process identify potential blind spots? Number 5, what are your short-term and long-term strategic planning horizons in terms of months, years, decades? Number 6, how do you ensure that your strategic planning process addresses your organization's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? Number 7, how does your strategic planning process address early indications of major shifts in technology, markets, competition, and the regulatory environment? Number 8, how does your strategic planning process address long-term organizational sustainability and continuity in emergencies? Number 9, how does your strategic planning process address your ability to, in fact, execute the plan? Number 10, what are your key strategic objectives and your timetable for accomplishing them? Number 11, what are your most important goals for these strategic objectives? And number 12, finally, what are the estimated cost of those goals? Now, you'll notice in all of these 12 questions, I never asked, what is your plan? That is not the correct question to ask until you have in place a comprehensive, systematic strategic planning process. If your organization is conducting its strategic planning the old-fashioned way, that is, where the leader of your organization simply dictates the strategic objectives and goals, I think you will be in trouble. You certainly will not win the hearts and minds of the new generation of emerging leaders. Why not? Well, first, this new generation wants to know what the process is. And secondly, they want to be involved in that process. Thirdly, they want to see the data and trends and metrics you used to validate your decision. And finally, they want to monitor the results to make sure the plan or strategy works. And when it doesn't work, they will challenge you, not in an offensive way, but rather the new generation simply wants to get it right. They are short on protocol and long on results. My experience has been that this is a healthy process because the new generation brings innovation and creativity to the business. They have little bias except to win. They are sore losers and very impatient. So if your organizational culture does not encourage discussion or invite dissent, I'm afraid you will have a very difficult time retaining talent from the new generation. The exercise of strategic planning is a collaborative process that takes into consideration the wants and needs of your customers, your employees, and the communities where you do business, as well as other stakeholders. My experience tells me that most organizations still use an outdated process for strategic planning that is tightly controlled and does not include a cross-segment of employees, customers, and other stakeholders. The problem is that when these important groups are restricted from the planning process, valuable information is lost, and that alone could limit the success of your organization's objectives and goals. So it is very important to create a strategic planning process that first and foremost addresses the 12 questions I recited earlier. And I also strongly encourage you to establish multiple listening posts throughout your organization in order to gather feedback from your customers, your employees, and other valued stakeholders. The second tool of business excellence that is vital to long-term success is identifying your key success factors, or KSFs. Key success factors are the 3 to 5 broad areas on which your organization must focus in order to achieve its vision. If you're not familiar with KSFs, let me tell you a little about them. And let me acknowledge the work of my good friend Mark Graham Brown, who wrote extensively about key success factors in his book, Winning Score, which I recommend to you. First of all, they should be focused in their language, but not so specific as being thought of as a strategy or a goal. Also, KFS should help identify performance measures and strategies, and they should help your organization prioritize its actions and resources. Key success factors can be major weaknesses or deficiencies in your organization that need to be fixed in order to achieve your vision. For example, a company that is in survival mode, such as a new startup biotech company, their KSF might be getting approval for long-term funding to underwrite the company's operating cost for the next year. KSFs should not be confused with goals or even measures of performance, which we will discuss in a few minutes. And KSFs do resemble strategies because both focus on what you need to do or how you plan to be successful. The main difference between KSFs and strategies is the level of specificity. A KSF is a broad area of focus or action, whereas a strategy is a specific action. Let me give you another example. A KSF might be to repair a damaged product quality image with consumers. A strategy to accomplish this might include better quality control techniques in the plant, increased inspection points in the new product design process, and a comprehensive advertising campaign that includes newspaper and television. I think the best-in-class companies and organizations usually focus on and become known for one or two KSFs. For example, here are some KSFs that work. Lowest cost, easiest to do business with, biggest selection, highest quality, great locations, safety first, next day delivery. In defining your own KSFs, here are 7 good questions you should discuss among your leadership team to establish your key success factors. Number 1, why do customers buy from us the first time? What attracts them to us? Number 2, why do customers return to do business with us or leave? Number 3, what advantages do we have over our competitors that we can further exploit? Number 4, what do we do that competitors will have a hard time copying? Number 5, what keywords come readily to mind when customers hear our name? Number 6, what do we want to be known for? And finally, number 7, what problem do we need to fix that otherwise might jeopardize our future success? Let me offer one important thought on the subject of key success factors. Most of the data you will need to identify and select your KSFs should come from the situation analysis phase of your strategic planning process. For example, if you thoroughly analyze your competitors, you should know their strengths and weaknesses. This information will help you differentiate yourself from your competitors. Also, your ability to conduct customer research on the needs and wants of your customers is a powerful tool to help you identify your key success factors. So, take advantage of this business excellence tool, and I think you'll see a dramatic shift in your business success. The third and final business excellence tool I want to encourage you to use is the balanced scorecard. I want you to imagine the dashboard of your car. On your dashboard, you have several gauges. Some are universal and appear on every dashboard, regardless of your car model. For example, all cars have a fuel gauge and a speedometer. Most cars also have a tachometer, which tells you how many revolutions per minute your car engine is turning. My point is that your company or organization needs to have a dashboard of key metrics that you can monitor and track on a regular basis. So this is the concept behind the balanced scorecard. The most popular interpretation of a balanced scorecard comes from Robert Kaplan and David Norton, who co-authored the book, The Balanced Scorecard, Translating Strategy into Action. What they suggest is a scorecard that includes key metrics in 4 critical areas of your business: customer measures, financial measures, internal measures such as quality, productivity, efficiency, safety, environmental performance, and supplier reliability, and finally, number 4, innovation, growth measures. Certainly, every successful organization should have some metrics in place on these 4 areas. The trick is to create a balanced scorecard that focuses on your key metrics for success and does not get bogged down in secondary measures. If, for example, your business is dependent on a stable workforce, perhaps a scorecard on human resources would be useful. If your organization relies heavily on suppliers for distribution and delivery, then a scorecard on supplier partner performance might be useful. My point is that you should create your own balanced scorecard so that you are tracking those key measures which make or break your business. In closing this module, let me tell you that world-class companies and organizations are using all 3 of these important tools for business excellence. They are doing an outstanding job in developing and implementing their strategic plan. They have identified their key success factors and constantly tweak them based on customer wants and needs. And finally, they are tracking their results through an effective balanced scorecard that, like a radar screen, keeps them on course and ahead of the competition. I invite you all to do the same.